there's a new sheriff in town. We're back with another Meta Duelist Meta Forecast. And in this week we have a new contender, a new challenger, a new Fire Dragon deck ruling and taking over the OCG metagame. Stick around because later in this video we're going to be showing you everything you need to know about a new challenger, Tenpai Dragon. But for now, let's talk about the metagame. Let's talk about this week's meta forecast. And if you're still not familiar with Meta Duelist, it is a new OCG and TCG competitive tournament coverage website with deck profiles, strategy guides, spicy text, and of course, detailed meta reports that will get you up to speed about the current OCG and TCG metagames. And as always, I've partnered with MetaDuelist.com to give you a rundown of this week's tournament representation, the top decks in the OCG format, and the spicy decks that you need to get familiar with before they come out. So let's jump into our first segment. As always, let's grab a piece of the pie and look at what the OCG metagame is looking like today. Fire Kings are still hanging by a thread with 22% representation, but right on their tail, Voiceless Voice is catching up with an overall 20%. Relying on their new continuous spell released in Legacy of Destruction, it seems there is something about Voiceless Voice that is catching on. Tenpai Dragon, a new Fire Dragon strategy from Legacy of Destruction, takes up 6% alongside Pure Snake Eye, and closing out the list are Centurion with a new Legacy of Destruction wave of support taking up only 4% of this week's metagame. Now let's dive into the decks of the week, and starting off with the winner of the HSCS 2v2 tournament, and if you haven't guessed it yet, it's Fire Kings. From previous weeks, there's been little change for Fire King. With its 14 hand traps out of 17 flag spots, the proposed versions continue to exclude Snake Eye Oak and Circle of the Fire King to make room for Fire King Skyburn. As for the extra deck, the presence of Garunic's Eternity, Hyang of the Fire King, seems to have stabilized within it, as well as the second Promethean Princess, Bestower of Flames, to play around Nibiru the Primal Being. The proposed versions exclude Axis Kotaker to give room for the World Sea Dragon Zelantis OTK Enabler. Next up is the winner of the 165th Next Play Cup with Voiceless Voice. Compared to last week's version, this one prefers the Diviner of the Herald package over the Nadir Servant and Dogmatica Maximus package. Diviner sends Trias Hierarchia to the graveyard, tributes it, using its effect, triggering Herald's effect to special summon Lo, the prayers of the Voiceless Voice, directly from the deck. Pot of Extravagance is used to boost consistency, while the Odd Eyes Pendulum Graph Dragon and Odd Eyes Wings Dragon package increases the layers of interruptions available. For the second consecutive week, we see Saravis reduced to just one copy in the main deck. Now this meta forecast is going to have something a little bit different. A Decks of the Week segment with a Spice Cabinet segment combined. It's time to talk about Tenpai Dragon, the new strategy released in the OCG that focuses in dealing a lot of damage interacting with your opponent exclusively in the battle phase. The new deck from Legacy of Destruction features Sanguine Super Dragon Transcend Dragion as its boss monster, and the main beaters of the deck which enable effective OTKs are Sanguine Rise Dragon Biden Dragion, Sanguine Super Dragon Transcend Dragion, and of course, the good old Trident Dragion. So yeah, this is also a deck of the week, but it's also a little bit spicy because this directly counters the meta, interacting with your opponent strictly in the battle phase, which prevents things like the Voiceless Voice interruptions, but also the Kirin interruption in the Fire King deck. And what this deck essentially tries to achieve is summoning a bunch of dragons exclusively during the battle phase, synchro summoning and climbing up to stronger and stronger synchro monsters, eventually destroying your opponent's entire board and dealing over 30,000 damage in total. So yeah, it seems like the Tenpai Dragons are coming up, and it will be very interesting to see if this success translates to the TCG in April when Legacy of Destruction actually drops. And now, after we've seen the top decks of the week, let's open the Spice Cabinet and take a little bit of a snifferoo and look at all the cool new spicy techs of this week. Psy-Frame Gear Delta is being put into many side decks due to its rather incredible and unnoticed ability to negate any spell activation and destroy it. Relying on the Psy-Frame Gear engine by summoning it and the driver, you can negate any spell as long as you control no monsters. Combining it with one additional limited Psy-Frame Gear Gamma gives you a consistent going second out for the many starter spells in today's metagame. Heatwave, this card is really out of this world, to be honest. Heatwave is seeing a significant amount of play in Tenpai Dragon decks. We talked about that a moment ago, being able to OTK your opponent with over 30,000 damage, and this is the reason why Tenpai Dragon specifically is playing Heatwave. Heatwave, as broken as it may sound, can be activated at the start of your main phase, and it says that neither player can summon any effect monsters until your next turn. This means that with a strong deck like Tenpai Dragon, you make your opponent pass their turn with a completely empty board, and with a consistent battle phase combo that inflicts an insane amount of damage, you are just guaranteed to OTK them. And lastly, it's kind of an old spice, but Mystical Space Typhoon is actually back. The good old MST is actually seeing some play in this week's metagame. Usually, Cosmic Cyclone is a much better out for removing your opponent's spells and traps, but now, with Artifact Lancia seeing a ton of play in many players' side decks to protect their back row, we kind of went back in time and people have started playing Mystical Space Typhoon in their side deck again to make sure that they can actually remove their opponent's incredibly powerful spells and traps. And this wraps up another Meta Duelist Meta Forecast. If you want to dive deeper into tournament reports, even smaller tournament reports, and read the full Meta Duelist OCG or TCG breakdowns, make sure to check out meta-duelist.com. There's a lot more resources and explanations there than what I just show in these videos, so it's incredibly worth it to go check them out and also check out the TCG section once in a while. And as always, we definitely want to hear your feedback. Feedback on the website, feedback on the meta report, feedback on these videos. Leave it down in the comments below because we listen and we take everything into account in order to just make better content for you guys. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like on your way out, subscribe if you are new here, turn on the bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.